South Sudan has unfolded a series of issues that has been arising in the country. When you look at right away from the comprehensive peace agreement that was signed in 2005, and then we went for an interim government that made South Sudan to be a semi-autonomous country within Sudan itself. Then we went for the referendum that gave birth to the Republic of South Sudan. Then the Republic of South Sudan, we have the Transitional Justice and the Transitional Constitution, the Republic of South Sudan. But of course, looking into that, there are a lot of issues that someone can look at how it has been evolving. First of all, when you look at the Constitution itself, that is one of the bases, for showing that people have the political will towards justice and reconciliation in the country. We came up with institutional reforms. That means the government structures has been developed. Like we have the Human Rights Commission, we have the National Healings and Reconciliation Commission in the country. Those are to mention but a few. But of course, looking at the country itself, a lot of things has happened. And then to mention the aspects of the inclusive dialogue, it is very instrumental in the Republic of South Sudan. Why do I say so? All the political parties have to participate, showing that they have the will in making sure things move forward. Other actors like the international NGOs, the local NGOs, the civil society, the media, all of them play their roles in making sure that the country, move forward. Like looking at the current situation that the country is in, crisis occurred in December that nobody could believe it was going to happen, but it happens. Most people lost their life, their dear ones, especially in Juba and in other neighboring states of Jongole and Unity, that is to say Bentiu in particular. And then Upper Nile, of course, the crisis happens in a place called Malakal, which is the state capital of Upper Nile State. Looking into that, what actually happened is that the first thing is they sign the cessation of hostility. That means there's no more fighting. Also sign, the peace talk agreement, showing the willingness for them to form an interim, government in the country. One of the things that that evolves in regards to the aspects of human rights and violation is the formation of the Commission of Inquiry. The Commission of Inquiry was formed this year, of course, after the cessation of hostility was signed. They began doing their work in making sure that they have to investigate what actually happened. Okay, looking at the root causes of what inspired the violence that has erupted in the country. They are looking at who are actually the perpetrators, what actually happened exactly, how are they going to handle such kind of issues that has arisen. I remember the meeting that we had. I personally was also part of them. We met with Olusegun Obasanjo, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who heads the team, with other members, and the like of the President of the African Court, Madam Sophie, she was also there. We actually found that there were basically some few issues that led to the crisis. One of the issues that, if I may mention, is the political power struggle. That means each and everyone wants to be a leader in one way or the other. So how can they address that? They failed to address that issue. That's why violence erupted. And then the violence itself went deep into ethnic, perspective. What do I mean by that? I mean, the two tribes began having problems among themselves. The Dinkas on the other side, and then the Nuer on the other side. Of course, South Sudan, those are the two dominant tribes in the country. What made maybe as one of the best practices maybe to per se, we look at the Transitional Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan. It has a lot of provision in regards to the Bill of Rights. When you look at the Bill of Rights, it talks about many of those rights that each and everyone wants to have it. And then, those rights are actually it protects, or it shows that the government upholds those rights that each and everyone should have or has. Because rights are entitlements that everyone have. By the virtue of being a human being, you have that rights. But of course, when it is being put into the constitution, saying it is a supreme law of the land, it makes sure it has more it deserves more respect for it, and so on. Of course, we also have, the South Sudan Human Rights Commission, which is very instrumental. They do a lot of work in regards to human rights. What are some of the things that they do? They conduct monitoring of the implementation of the Bill of Rights. They do investigations into human rights violations, and then of course they do reports. And then the reports are always annually being published. And of course, it is being tabled before the parliament. They make sure they approve it before it is being passed, before it is being published, I mean to say. Of course, with other stakeholders in the country that also looks into aspects of human rights, like the South Sudan Law Society. We do a lot in regards to human rights, like the aspects of monitoring and making sure that we do a lot of awareness raising in regards to human rights. One of the things that I look at is the aspects of conducting the research and funding it to make sure that we document human rights violation in the country. Another thing is, how best can we handle the aspects of reconciliation? Is it possible for the people to be, be trained or to sensitize, to understand there's need for peaceful coexistence between all the South Sudanese, for the benefit of the country? That's another thing that is to be taken into consideration. Then, the aspects of lobby and advocacy is very instrumental. Who are those people supposed to do the advocacy and lobby? It is very instrumental for, in one way or the other, I strongly believe the international community or the international NGOs working in the country, they are very instrumental into that, because they have access to meeting those high-level government officials who actually implements whatever decision that they come up with. Because I strongly believe if the top officials are influenced, then they get to understand why should we have this in place. The aspects of reconciliation also needs, I should add on, it needs a lot of things to be done on. Why do I say so? We have the National Healing and Reconciliation Commission. The National Healing and Reconciliation Commission, it comprises of people from all the categories in the country, but it does not reflect the views or the ideas or the opinions of the people at the grassroots. Because one of the things that is supposed to be put into test is how did the commission came to be into existence? What are the criteria that they have used into the selections of the people working in the commissions? They must make sure they state it very clear the roles of the commission to the people. They must understand. We must understand. The grassroots people should be aware. How can they improve the outreach program, making sure that the people at the grassroots should get to know the commission is actually there for us. This is what they have. This is what they normally do, and then how can we get access to them? Those informations are very instrumental in making sure that we move forward. But of course, not forgetting the most important thing that I always say, the aspects of justice. We cannot rule it out. Why do I say so? Justice and accountability is very important. We need to know who actually does what, and then who actually did what during the crisis. Then how is that person going to be accountable? Is he actually going to be prosecuted? Because most of the people who lost their dear ones, or most of the people who are affected, the victims of the crisis, need to, they need a redress to the problems that affects them. If nothing is being done, how do you expect someone to see someone going on the street and say, this was so and so who actually killed my relative, and then he's moving freely? How will that person feel? Assuming it is you, how will you feel? in one way or the other, it makes no sense for people saying peace should be there when, in actual sense, the root causes of the thing is not being addressed, and then the aspects of justice and accountability have not been taken into considerations, which is very important, you know. And then another thing that has to be taken into consideration is the aspects of reparations. How do you do it? How do you know what is actually to be given to who? And then on what ground is that person supposed to deserve that? You know, it has also to be taken into consideration. I believe in democratic society, there are a lot of things that has to be taken into considerations. One of the things that I think is very instrumental is the Constitution. How do we go about the Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan? We need to come with a permanent Constitution for the Republic of South Sudan. One of the things which is supposed to be done is the National Constitutional Review Commission that has been formed has to be dissolved, and then a new one has to be created. And then if the new one is being created, the language being used is not supposed to be reformed. It's supposed to be, and it's not supposed to be reviewed. I mean to say it, sorry. It's supposed to be reformed. Because if this review, that means you're only looking at the laws that is there, and then you actually look at the context of some of the provisions that have been there, and then you adjust it and then you frame it to look nice and all that. But when you say reforms, that means you're getting more of the inputs and see how to develop it, and then it becomes better. So that is one of the one of the most important institutions that people have to look into. When it comes to the institutional reforms, the Constitutional Review Commission is very important, making sure that the Constitution should reflect the will of the people of the country. Then another thing that has to be taken into consideration is the election. Because the elections, we must have the laws. Now we don't have the laws in the pertaining. We need to have good laws in regards to elections. Then those laws should actually be implemented in the way it is. And then when is election supposed to be conducted? Since we are going for an interim government, how long will the interim government be? They must define what constitutes an interim government. And then people should understand this is going to be an interim government, and this is the number of years it's going to take, and then the nature of the work will be like this.